Welcome to the Bill Levinson Experience, a motivational podcast relating to the insurance brokerage industry and business in general. And now, here's Bill Levinson.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us once again to the Bill Levinson Experience podcast. So this is officially our second episode, in my opinion, one of the most important episodes that we'll ever have on this channel. Very, very excited to have Cary Levinson, my father, joining us today as our guest speaker. So, I think this is so important for our listeners just to tune in and kind of hear the story on A, how I got started, and then B, how Cary got started in the business, his influence on me, the way we work together today as a true partnership, and, his father in so many great ways, and of course teaches me and taught me all the A, B's, and C's of the life insurance brokerage space. So I think it's a real neat story that everybody can learn a little something from. He's got some great, I call them field stories, when he used to work with Metropolitan Life, and he's going to share some of those. We're going to talk about some little tidbits of life insurance selling and some of the good, bad, the ugly, and all of everything that's in between. Okay, so first off, I just want to start from day one for me, so you kind of understand how Cary was a big part of my life and how he constantly would push me and talk to me about the life insurance industry. So, growing up, I was focused on lots and lots of cool things that the typical middle school, high school boy was focused on, and it was working out in the gym and the cool cars, and obviously the dating life and prom and dinner dances and all the above. And my father was always in the insurance industry. And, growing up and coming out of high school, and I had so many different things on my mind. I didn't know what direction I should go in. And obviously I wanted to be successful and have a great career that I was proud of. And my father was always telling me in my ear, hey, you really need to look into the insurance business. It's a great industry, and it could be one of the best kept secrets or the worst nightmares of all time. It's all what you make of it. And, he would constantly go on all these company conventions and trips, and he would send postcards and call me from there and say, Bill, I see a lot of young people just like you, and you really need to consider coming into the business. And, at that time, all I wanted to do was work out and ride and sell motorcycles. That was my dream at that time. So anyway, the years went on, and if you heard podcast number 1 with Jeff Levitetz, you'll hear the story on how I met him at the motorcycle dealership. And then a few years later, between my father sending me these postcards from, Turks and Caicos and from Europe and all over the world, and constantly saying, hey, you got to join this business, and then Jeff giving me that little extra push that I needed. Long story short, I joined Cary, his team, and the life insurance industry. So I have never looked back, and my father was right. This happened to be the best-kept secret in the world, and here we are today with 16,000 agents in every city in the country. So he was spot on when it came to delivering his message and what he would tell me in my ear constantly. So, Cary, thank you for that. And then I'm just going to say one other quick story, and then I'm going to introduce Cary Levinson. So I love this story because this is hysterical to me. So, when I was a kid growing up, I would go to all of my friends' birthday parties, and we'd go to the local Chuck E. Cheese, and my father would always, of course, make me bring a gift, but he would insist that the gift would be wrapped in life insurance applications. Okay, so me being a kid and walking in with this gift, and you would see, everybody else had their gifts wrapped with fancy wrapping paper and, these little ribbons and all this stuff and confetti, and I came in with a life insurance application wrapped around my gift. So obviously everybody talked about this and said, what the hell is this? Why would you wrap this in a life insurance application? And, of course, my dad was always right there, right behind me, and he would say, well, that's because I'm in the life insurance business. And I would say to my dad, well, why? Why do we have to do this? And he would say, well, because when the child would open the gift, they would say, what is this? And the parents would turn around and always say, well, oh, I guess Cary is a life insurance salesman or agent, which would bring up the question, hey, do you have life insurance protection? And then Cary would come in, obviously give them a quote, and try to write a new life insurance policy, right? So rocket science. Well, back then I didn't look at it like that. I was always the kid that was made fun of. But fast forward to today's time, I look back and it all kind of makes sense to me. And I think that's a funny story. And it just shows that life insurance was in my blood literally since day one. So Cary is 100% responsible for that part. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Cary Levinson. And Dad, if you want to say hello to everyone and thank everyone for joining.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, that's quite the introduction. I really appreciate that. And yes, I wish I could take credit for the life insurance applications as gift wrap, but I can't because at 21 years old, when I came into this business, several other Metropolitan Life agents were doing exactly the same thing. So part of my training with MetLife was to wrap your children's birthday gifts in wrapping paper that said Metropolitan Life all over it. And I'll tell you what, it worked for other people and it worked for me as well. And I'm thrilled to see 22 years later, after you've come into this business, that it made that kind of an impact on you. But I guess you're absolutely right, Bill, in the sense that in those days, in 1971, when I started with Metropolitan Life, we did whatever we needed to do. And, of course, we didn't have technology like we do today. We just went out there and we went into an industrial park and we wrapped our kids' gifts in MetLife paperwork, and we just did whatever we had to do. I remember never taking a haircut without talking to my barber about life insurance, never going into a supermarket without talking to the cashier about life insurance. And that's all we did. 24 hours a day, we lived and breathed and slept life insurance.
Yep, and I think, we look at that today, right, everything you just said, and yes, it's a totally different world now with technology and our iPhones and laptops and iPads, but the message is exactly the same. If you're a life insurance agent out there, you need to be talking to everyone about this. And yes, this is what you do for a living, but also you're helping that family tremendously. And Cary's going to give you some real life examples, okay, that are exactly equation from what we're going to talk about now with delivering an actual death benefit check. So, but the first part, before we jump around, Dad, if we can, let's back up because I know everybody's interested in how you got started, right? So how did you all of a sudden, want to become a life insurance agent and learn the ropes, and what pushed you over the edge?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I certainly didn't go through college. I didn't go through school or anything thinking that I was going to ever wind up as a life insurance agent. I got married to Mom very, very young, as you know. And all of a sudden, Mom became pregnant, and I needed a job. So I moved from Brooklyn, New York, the day that I graduated Brooklyn College with a degree in psychology, and we moved to Miami. And sure enough, very shortly after we moved, the realization that one has to eat and pay rent, hit me, and I needed a job. And I thought that I would go back to school and get my master's and then get my PhD and ultimately become a psychiatrist, which is really what I wanted to do. It didn't quite work out that way because about 6 months after we got married, along came your sister. And we had to go to, as soon as we thought that Mom might be pregnant, we went to a gynecologist in Coral Gables, and we were sitting in the waiting room waiting to talk to the doctor, and all of a sudden several pregnant women came into the doctor's waiting room. And of course I had my classified section for jobs in my back pocket. I'm 21 years old, and now I have to stand up and let a pregnant woman sit down because there were no chairs left. So I'm standing there in the doctor's office, and I open up my classified ads, and I see across the street, literally, is a Metropolitan Life office. So I said to her, I said, honey, I'm leaving. I'm going across the street. I'll be back. I'm going on a job interview. I'm just going to, I guess, kill some time. So that's exactly what happened. I walked across the street, walked into this Metropolitan Life office. We started talking, and my manager said some magic words to me that really perked my attention. And those words had nothing whatsoever to do with the life insurance business. Those words were, yes, Cary, we will pay you $110 a week for 13 weeks, and then you go on 100% commission. So I said, in my mind, I said, okay, fine, I'll take it. So he started telling me all about the business, and I said, great, great, great. And we shook hands, and he said, you're hired. You start Monday morning. So I said, great. So I walked back across the street, and Mom had come out of the doctor's office, and she said, honey, I have great news. I'm pregnant. And I said, honey, I have great news. We don't have to worry for the next 13 weeks because I'm on a salary and we're going to get the bills paid. So that started my career with Metropolitan Life. So I went to work to the office the next Monday, and we got going here, and we had several ways of prospecting, which I think some of the old-timers on this call might identify with. But there was a rookie room. It was basically a broom closet. And there was a Yellow Pages there, and my manager said to me, you sit down, you do not drink water, you do not drink coffee because you cannot use the restroom, because if you do, somebody will close your Yellow Pages and they'll throw it on the floor and they'll take your seat. So I sat there all day long, and I opened up certain categories in the Yellow Pages. I remember one day doing the P's, and I was calling plumbers and plumbing supply companies and pavers and all painters and all kinds of different businesses beginning in P. And then what happened is one day I made a call, and someone said to me, gee, you sound like a nice young man, and I am interested in life insurance. I'm 35 years old. I'm married. I have 2 little girls, 7 and 4. And he said, when can you come out? So I said, you tell me, sir, whatever's good for you. And he said, well, how about 8 o'clock tonight? And that's exactly, I said, hold on, let me check my schedule. Of course, I had nothing on my schedule whatsoever. And I go running into my manager's office, and I said, Herbie, what do we do? Somebody actually wants to talk to me. And he said, well, make the appointment, and you and I will go tonight. So I go running back to my broom closet, and I get back on the phone, and I said, Bob, I think we can squeeze you in at 8 o'clock tonight, and we'll be there. So that was one of my first appointments, and we drove out there, and I sat there, and I absolutely did not say one word, and I watched my manager make a presentation, and he wound up selling a $15,000 whole life policy. And I went back to the office the next day, and we were celebrating, and it was great, and everything was fine. We submitted the application, and I would say about 3 to 4 weeks later, as I was going through this process, Joan, Bob's wife, called me, and she was hysterical crying, and she said, Cary, Bob was killed on I-95 on the way home from the shop. And I said, oh my God, I had no idea what to do. I said, hold on. So I go running back to Herb's office, and I said, Herbie, what do we do? I have no idea what to tell this woman. And he said, we are not going to do anything. He said, you are going to go out to see her, fill out this form, and we're going to submit it to the company. And that's what I did that night. And I knocked on the door, walked into the house. She was hysterical crying. She hugged me. The little girls were there. And we filled out the death claim and went back the next day, turned it into the office. And I would say within 10 days or so, I had a $15,000 check in my hand. And I called up Joan, and I went back there, and I delivered the check. And to this day, 47 and a half years later, I will never, ever forget delivering that death claim. And she
let me just say one thing, Cary. Let's say back then, obviously it was 15,000, and what
Yes.
was that equal to today, ballpark?
I would say that would be comparable to between $250,000 and $300,000 today.
Okay.
Right.
Just so everyone can get an idea. And I'm going to let you finish, but I just want everyone that's listening to understand, we all get caught up and, we are a marketing organization and we recruit and service agents, and you're the agent out there that's selling and pitching, and, maybe you're a financial advisor, CPA, whatever it is, estate planning attorney. But I think we all get so caught up in the marketing and networking and pitching and seminars and webinars when the real matter of what we do, okay, is so important. And Cary's story is exactly why we do what we do every day, okay? And that's what makes the big difference. When you deliver a death claim check, it changes your career, period. So, Cary, go. I'll let you finish. I just want everyone to understand.
Exactly. Bill, you're 100% correct. So after delivering the check, I went back home, and I said to my wife, I said, honey, I said, I was in this for 13 weeks. I said, I made a commitment to you. I made a commitment to me that this was not going to be what I wanted to do. And I said, after the day that I had today, after I saw how our work impacted this family, this mom and 2 little girls, I said, I am not leaving this business in the 14th week. And sure enough, as I say, it's close to 48 years later. It is by far the most emotionally, financially, and psychologically fulfilling career, profession, whatever you want to call it, that I could have ever gotten myself into at 21 years old. I have seen so many lives impacted by the hard work, the diligence of the average insurance male or female, and just the role that we play every day, the gyrations we go through, what we put up with, impacts people's lives so dramatically that it's absolutely unbelievable. When people need someone the most, when their lives are so in turmoil, stressed, when you lose a loved one, everybody else has their hand out. We need money. The credit card company, the mortgage company, the whatever it may be. We as insurance professionals go in and we make lives whole again. And no one, and I speak to groups today, we have training classes in the office. I tell people that are in the business 20 years or 20 minutes, no one impacts human beings like you can when they need it the most. I am so committed to this business after so many years that no one can ever take that away from me. And all it takes, unfortunately, is one death claim. And Bill, I'll just say one other thing real quick about the impact that we play. We have a local agent. I won't go into his last name. His name is Walter. Very similar situation, late 30s, married, son, daughter, 5 and 3 years old. Terrific agent, came by the office at least once a week, dropped off an application, picked up an illustration, dropped off donuts to the staff here in the office. One day he was home barbecuing, making hamburgers. The kids and his wife were in the pool, and they said, "Daddy, come on in the pool." And he said, "All right, let me just finish these burgers." Finished up, shut the barbecue, jumped in the pool, didn't realize that he dived into the shallow end of the pool and actually broke his neck and his back and wound up dying in front of his family. So to this day, and this was about 6 months ago, his wife comes in periodically and says, "Thank God that Walter had the $1 million life insurance policy that he took out on himself. We have no idea what our lives would be without that policy." So just something to keep in mind, how we impact others.
Yep, that's a great story, and it's so true. And like I said, we all get caught up, day in and day out with the minutia and the calls and emails and quoting and prospecting, and at the end of the day, we almost forget on why we do what we do, and it's so important. And obviously nobody wants someone to pass on and to deliver a death claim, a death benefit check, but at the end of the day, it will change your career. And it will happen, by the way. If you're a successful agent, it's going to happen to you probably a few times. So anyway, Cary, that was great, by the way. Thank you for that. What I would love for everyone on the call, and if you're in the insurance business, you're an agent, great. But even if you're in sales in general, in any way, what I would like everyone to listen in on is, Cary, if you can share just, maybe some prospecting tips or, how to stay, consistent and persistent, like I always say, and, how to keep your head in the game, which I think is so important, because after, a year or two, if you're not doing that great and maybe the commissions aren't coming in like you thought, what's some motivation and inspiration? Any tips that you can share with everyone on the call?
Well, I can tell you one thing, Bill. People come into our office and they look at our office and and they say, this is beautiful and all these things. It wasn't always beautiful. That's all I can tell you. That after I came off salary and that 14th week began, I can tell you that we lived on Campbell's chunky chicken soup for many, many nights as dinner while I was trying to succeed in the life insurance business. Forget going out to dinner. We had one car. It was very, very difficult. And as I mentioned before, Mom was pregnant with your sister, and there were extremely hard times. But I think the main thing is that when you make a commitment to this industry, the main thing that should keep you motivated like nothing else, of course, the first-year commission to pay our bills, of course, the income stream of renewals, and of course, all of the conventions and all of the goodies that come along the more successful that we get. It is an absolute struggle. When I first started with Met, the first thing Herb made me do, my manager, was to fill out what we called, and many of you will be able to identify with this that have several years of experience in our business, what Met called a Project 100. Well, this was nothing more than a listing of 100 friends, neighbors, and relatives of people we knew that we could approach and talk to insurance about. and their names and their phone numbers. Of course, there were no email addresses. When he gave me the book the first day that I started with Met, there were 3 people that I listed in the book. They were my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my sister-in-law. And I didn't know anyone else. I was brand new to the area. So there were many, many days that I would get in my car with my manager and 2 or 3 other rookies, and he would drop us off in an industrial park, and we would go knocking on doors. And you talk about struggling to get prospects, people to talk to. I remember I walked into one shop of some kind. I don't remember what kind of store, or not a store, but it was some kind of a shop. And I walked in and I said, "Hi, this is Cary Levinson with Metropolitan Life. Just thought I would stop by. I happen to be in the area, and I was wondering if I could save you some money on your life and health insurance." And he said, "Are you kidding me? I mean, I just walked in. I wasn't there 30 seconds. And he said to me, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "Another goddamn insurance agent?" And he picked up this counter, and all of a sudden, this German Shepherd comes out from behind this piece of wood with, growling at me, and he chased me out of the shop and down the street until he finally called the dog back into the shop. And I'm running, away from this beast, and I'm saying to myself, what am I doing in this business? So, I mean, when you get down, when you get frustrated, always try to think of whatever positive you can muster up for that day. Think of the next sale you're going to make. Think of how you're going to impact the next businessman you talk to, how you're going to impact the next family that you sell a life policy to. Don't get hung up on what's the rating of the company, what's the renewal commission, what's the first-year commission. These are all things, of course, that are important, but never, ever lose sight of the fact that what you do impacts people like no one else in the world. And when I started Cary Levinson and Associates, yes, Bill mentioned we now have 16,000 agents, of which I so compliment Bill for getting this organization to that point. When I started this organization, and I did ultimately resign from Metropolitan, it was me and 3 of my good friends who left Metropolitan Life, and they were the agents that were doing business with Cary Levinson and Associates. So we went from 3 agents to today, 47 and a half years later, we are now close to 16,000 agents, and we are the most technologically oriented IMO in the country. We went from having several agents in the state of Florida and some in Georgia. We now have agents in every single state in the country. And for that, for our growth, as I mentioned, I absolutely thank Bill for that, because he took us basically from a Florida IMO to a nationwide, extremely successful IMO. And the difference is that we offer agents who do business with Levinson and Associates the tools, the technology, the wherewithal to become successful. If anyone on this call is an agent and they want to succeed in this business, if you hook your wagon to ours, we will give you everything you need to be successful.
Yep, love it. That was spot on, Cary. And, I think if you look back and, think about the old school, insurance agent with the yellow legal pad and the rate book, in your briefcase, which is great, by the way. I mean, that was your Bible, okay? But nowadays, it's the same concept, okay? It's the same model, okay? But you need to think, laptop, iPad, smartphone, right? If it's an iPhone, have the Levinson app downloaded on your tablet or your phone. Be ready to run a quote at any time. We have agents that walk around with these pins It's literally a magnetic pin that says "Ask me about free scholarships," and they walk around. They go to the grocery store, to their children's soccer and basketball games with this pin on their shirt. And the reason why they do it is because it sparks conversation. Another parent's going to say, oh, well, what do you have to do with free scholarships? I have 2 kids, 2 and 7, and they're going to college. So what can you tell me? Obviously, that's your way in to talk about scholarships, college planning, right? And then how life insurance works in conjunction with the scholarship program, which is free, by the way, to your clients. So you need to constantly think, branding, networking, getting your name out there. If you're an agent, you have to think, hey, I'm Bill Levinson. I am the South Florida go-to life insurance agent. I want everyone to remember me, right, when it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, critical illness. If you're in the health insurance side or property and casualty, they have to remember Bill is our guy. He's our go-to. It's so, so important, and we've had a few agents and a debate that just came up recently from some veteran kind of agents that have been in the business a long time, and they said to me, and I thought this was interesting, they said, Bill, isn't it better to be an expert in one area or one field, right, instead of being a master of all trades? And, years and years ago, I actually would agree to that. I said to myself, if we can be excellent at marketing and servicing life insurance agents and we want to be known for that, that's all we have to do, okay? And that was a fact, okay, in my opinion back then. But as the years went on, okay, now we have the internet and everything is free. You can look up information on how they can build a NASA rocket, right? And literally in minutes. We can find out, what is a indexed universal life policy in 15 seconds with our iPhone. Okay, instantly. So, you fast forward to today, and I'm not saying you have to be an expert in life, annuity, long-term care, health, P&C. No, because that's almost impossible. But know the basics and market yourself as the insurance agent that handles all lines, okay? Or at the minimum, let's say life insurance, long-term care, annuities, critical illness, everything but, say, securities. It's so important because here's what happens if you don't. And I also hear this story all the time. I'm Bill Levinson, the life insurance agent. I'm in the public supermarket online paying for my food, and I run into Susie, the neighbor, who bought a 10-year term policy from me. And I run into Susie. She says, hello, and I say, hi, how are the kids? How's the family? Everything's great. And she says, Bill, I just bought a long-term care policy, and I was thinking about you, but I knew you only focused on life insurance. So I got some email blast from some guy named Long-Term Care Bob, who I thought only specialized in long-term care. So I got an e-blast, and I picked up the phone, called Bob to run a quote. He came over, and we signed the application. I now have a long-term care policy. And, Bill, I wish you would have handled long-term care because, I have a relationship with you, and you're my neighbor. I would have much rather bought the policy from you, okay? Well, guess what? It's a shame because Bill Levinson, the life insurance agent, should have marketed himself as the LTC and critical illness and life insurance and annuity agent. And Bill Levinson should have sent out those monthly emails to his clients and prospects with a picture of Bill Levinson. And then under that picture, it could say life insurance, annuity, critical illness, and all lines of business that Bill handles. So when the neighbor got that LTC e-blast, she would have remembered Bill Levinson. So my point is, yes, it's a great debate, but I truly believe to be successful in this day and age, just know the basics of most lines of insurance so you can handle everything under one roof. As soon as you refer that business out, you risk losing the client for everything. So anyway, just a little food for thought. And then I also want to touch on one more thing, and then we'll end the call unless you have anything else, Cary. I want everyone to understand.
I do just want to make one point.
Yeah, sure.
To show folks how far we've come. That when I started with Met so many years ago, it was very, very important to the management at Met that the salesman had to, just to show you how far we've come in the last number of years. It was very important to the Metropolitan Life management that every single agent representing Metropolitan Life had a Cadillac. If you were a Met agent, you had to have a Cadillac. And now here I am going home, and I'm opening a can of soup for my wife and I to have dinner, and now I'm saying to her, honey, they want us to have a Cadillac. So anyway, I had a dilapidated, I think it was a 240 Datsun at the time, that we had driven down from New York with the traditional ironing board sticking out the window, like Miami or bust kind of approach. And now they want me to buy a Cadillac. Well, they said if you're going to represent Metropolitan and you're in a client's driveway, you can't be dropping a muffler or a car part in front of their house. So anyway, I went out and I managed to find a 1959 Cadillac in 1971, which, again, whatever the price was, I don't remember, but when you're destitute and you're trying to make a living and do the best you can, it worked. It didn't work all the time, but the concept worked, and a lot of people thought that, I was perhaps a bit more successful than I really was. So keep that in mind, and then I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wife on this call, Ina, and say that she was so responsible for my success as it continued to grow, because when I was an agent, she would get on the phone and also grab a Yellow Pages when I wasn't home, and she would make cold calls for me and say that Cary Levinson is going to be in your area Tuesday and Thursday of next week. He'd like to stop by and see if he can save you some money on your life and health insurance. Would Tuesday at 10 in the morning be more convenient, or Thursday at 3 p.m.? And she did that day in and day out while I was out there trying to make some sales. So, Ina, you are very, very responsible for my success. I can never thank you enough, and happy 48th anniversary.
Wow, that was very nice, Cary. You just got big brownie points for that one, buddy. Great job. All right, so I just want to just back up for a second, and then we'll end the call unless Cary has any closing comments. But I know we kind of jumped all over the place. I purposely wanted this to be very casual. We didn't plan this out or have any scripts. I wanted it to be as real and authentic as possible. So I want to just mention one thing. First of all, that that fake it till you make it kind of mindset philosophy, drive the fancy Cadillac so you look the part and wear the expensive suit and maybe the fake Rolex. People did that years ago, and in my opinion, okay, I think that these days you're better off just being yourself and real and authentic, and if you're struggling a little bit with marketing, tell it like it is. I think there's nothing wrong with showing your true colors. And then, one day when you have the fancy Cadillac or the Mercedes, whatever it is, enjoy it. You deserve it. Good luck and great job, kind of thing. So I truly feel like that in my heart. I think that it's always best to be yourself. I think that's number one. Number two, I know we jumped all over the place a little bit. I want to just say one thing so everybody's clear. So in the very, very early days when I was a kid, yes, Cary started off as a insurance agent for MetLife, and then he became a general agent for MetLife in the Miami area, okay, and then did that for many years, was very, very successful on both sides. And then he kind of spun off and did his own thing with a few carriers, okay, and became a true brokerage IMO, okay? At the time, I believe it was 2 or 3 carriers. And then when I came into the business, obviously we changed the name from Cary Levinson and Associates to Levinson and Associates. Fast forward today, we are a true wholesale brokerage operation with over 60 carriers on the life and annuity side, and we have the senior market that's now getting off the ground as we speak. Next week, I'm flying to New York City to interview Gary Vaynerchuk for our podcast. He'll be number 3, so I'm very, very excited about that, which ties in perfectly to marketing our Sell While You Sleep platform, which is the first, think Amazon, right? The first platform to ever be designed online where agents can go direct to consumer. So your client can go on your website, choose from 10 different life insurance products, get approved the same day, and literally print or have their policy emailed to them, and you still get full commission and renewals. That is a game changer in our industry. So very proud of that. Cary, do you want to say any last words before we end?
I just want to say that I'm so glad that you made the decision at 21 years old to come and join me, Bill. I think the success that we're experiencing today, you are so responsible for, and I'm just thrilled to death to come to work every day and be with you and Mom and Heidi and the fantastic staff that we now have at Levinson and Associates. And anyone on this call that is working with us at this moment, we thank you so much for your commitment, your loyalty, and your business.
Thank you, Cary. That was great. In fact, you gave me goosebumps here. We're thrilled to have you still working every day. He puts in a full 9 to 5:30, okay, except for cigar night. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend, a good week, and great selling. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Bill Levinson Experience. Please feel free to share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested. You may also visit levinsonandassociates.com and all of Bill Levinson's social media pages for more information.